Hello friends, Roy Haynes here with Lifetime. I'm using this channel to share my views about life and about the times we live in. I hope this will be fun, encouraging, informative, and thought-provoking. I will also introduce some of my original music during this time. Today our topic is A Bride for the King. Back in the day, actually in Bible days, in Galilee, a young man might not have or didn't have to know a girl to marry her. He may have seen her for the first time that day, or perhaps his father saw her and thought she would make a good match for his son. At any rate, the young man might come knocking on her father's door some evening. He would bring three things with him: money, a contract, and wine. The wine would be poured and the proposal made. The money was for the father of the bride, assuming she was agreeable. It was a substantial sum, like a down payment on a house. The contract, a marriage contract, basically called for three things: that the bride would wear a veil over her face whenever she was out in public, that she would remain at home, and that she would have a little oil lamp all trimmed and ready to light. The prospective bride could take her time, count the money, read the contract, but she had to say yes or no. If she said no, she would have to hope that perhaps someday another suitor might come knocking on her father's door, maybe one more to her liking or to her parents' liking. If she said yes, she would take up the cup of wine and drink. Her life then, from that moment on, belonged to the bridegroom. The groom would stand and say, "I go to prepare a place for you." And he would leave, his bride remaining behind with her family. Now, to make sense of this, the bride would wear the veil to signify that she was no longer available. She had been bought with a price. That was the money for her father, the bride's price. And she was required to stay at home because she didn't know when her groom was going to be coming back for her, and she had to be ready at a moment's notice. The little lamp was one time a practical thing in a community with few street lights, and eventually became a symbol of faithfulness on the part of the bride. The groom, after he went back home, would begin to build a bridal chamber in his father's house. This chamber was like a little house in itself and would be stocked with everything needed for the bride and groom to live in it for an entire week. They would have that first week to really get to know each other before going back out into public life. During that time, during that week, the father of the groom would throw a party, a feast for all his friends, which would last an entire week. Because of the party, the bridal chamber had to be up to the father's standards before the groom could go get his bride and before the father's guest would arrive. That's why the bride didn't know when her groom might be coming back for her. If he was a skilled builder, it could be soon. If not, who knows when. When the father felt it was ready, he would tell his son, "Son, go get your bride." The groom would then send a friend or his best man to warn the bride and her family that he was coming. Usually during the night, dark of the night, the groom would come with his friends and snatch the bride away to the bridal chamber in his father's house. When I first heard most of this information from a cassette tape called A Love Story by the late Zola Levitt, a Jewish Christian teacher, I had several aha moments. There were some familiar passages, phrases that stood out to me. For instance, bought with a price, as found in the Bible in Acts 20:28 and in 1 Corinthians 6:19 through 20, referring to us as Christians as being bought with the blood of Jesus, which was his bride's price for the church. And there is also, I go to prepare a place for you, as in John 14:1 through 3. Jesus telling his disciples he was going to prepare a place for them, for us, the church. Also, the father of the groom did not, or also only the father of the groom he was the only one to know when the groom would return for his bride. That corresponds with Matthew 24:36, when Jesus said, "No one knows about that day or hour, not even the angels in heaven, nor the Son, but only the Father." During the Last Supper, Jesus gave the disciples a cup of wine to drink. They all did. The church, the bride, accepted the bridegroom's proposal for all who believe in Jesus. Many years ago, an older woman, Babe Smith, from a church that I was pastor of in Oregon, confirmed this story for me. She was on vacation in Israel with an Israeli tour group when across the street a stretch limo came screeching to a halt in front of a laundry mat, in which those who were taking care of the laundromat lived in an apartment upstairs. Two men dressed in tuxes jumped out of the limo and ran inside the laundry. There appeared to be some sort of scuffle inside, and suddenly the two men reappeared with a woman in a wedding dress kind of drugged between them. The woman was almost thrown into the limousine, and with a squeal of tires, the car was off down the street. Babe was upset, fearing for the woman in the wedding dress. But those in the tour group with her assured her that she had just witnessed a Jewish bridegroom snatching his bride away to his father's house. So what does this mean for us? Jesus was speaking wedding talk to his disciples, which they understood plainly, but probably didn't know how it applied to them until after Jesus had risen from the dead. If we follow the Jewish wedding, we can expect Jesus to suddenly snatch the bride, his church, away and carry her to his Father's house for that week-long celebration. Please note that after the bride and groom had spent their first week together, there would be a procession that would escort them to the house they would live in. Thus, after the church is snatched away to the Father's house for 7 days, 7 years, the bridegroom, King Jesus, and the bride, the church, will be escorted to their home, to their new home, the earth, that will be renewed. Thus, Jesus' second coming. Now, a disclaimer. During Jesus' day, there were many scholars of the scriptures, and they had a picture of what the Messiah would do, what he would be like, yet they all missed it. What I have just shared here is what I believe we have to look forward to, but many believe otherwise. Some will even try to tell the date, the exact day of Jesus' return, but everyone to this date has been wrong. So what is important? That if you confess with your mouth Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. For it is with your heart that you believe and are justified, and it is with your mouth that you confess and are saved. That's Romans 10:9 and 10. That's the verses I came to Christ on. Also, Jesus said, "Go ye into all the world and make disciples." That's an important thing for us to remember and be doing. And Jesus said, "Therefore keep watch, because you do not know the day your Lord will return." That's Matthew 24:42. He told that to his disciples before he even even ascended to heaven. Jesus also said, "You must be ready, because the Son of Man will come at an hour you do not expect him." Matthew 24:44. Thus, Jesus wants us to live as though he could return this very day. I want to close with the song I call "I'm Ready." Some poor soul tried to tell the day of your coming, Lord, but like all the rest, he was wrong. Why don't people just read your word? Why don't people believe what you say? But I'm ready, I'm waiting, I'm telling others of your love. Please fill me with your spirit, so I can be just like my Jesus. The Bible says you'll come when we least expect you, and far too often expect you, we don't. What we believe is shown in how we live. 'Cause all for me with nothing left to give. But I'm ready, I'm waiting, I'm telling others of your love. Please fill me with your spirit, so I can be just like my Jesus. Why don't we let God have his way? After all, he could come this very day. I'm ready, I'm waiting, I'm telling others of your love. Please fill me with your spirit, so I can be just like my Jesus. I'm ready, I'm waiting, I'm telling others of your love. Please fill me with your spirit, so I can be just like my Jesus. Please fill me with your spirit, so I can be